New this afternoon, an Austin congressman is demanding answers from the Department of Homeland Security and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement.
Yeah, this is all because of a college student from Austin who was deported while traveling home from Boston. Now, we told you about this last week. 19-year-old Annie Lucia Lopez Balosa was detained and deported last month while flying home for Thanksgiving. A judge issued an order to stop her deportation after she'd already been sent to Honduras. The New York Times has a new report out today. Her father telling reporters ICE agents came to his Austin home yesterday saying they may be targeting him for speaking out about his daughter's case.
Well, Austin Congressman Greg Casar sent a letter to the heads of DHS and ICE today expressing concern with Lopez Balosa's deportation. He's also asking for answers about how the departments chose to deport her and calling for her to be allowed to return to the U.S. while her case plays out. Today, KVUE's Jenny Lee spoke with Congressman Casar about his request for information.
Tell us your reaction to the New York Times report about Francis Lopez and his claims that ICE is targeting him for speaking out about his daughter's deportation.
Well, those aren't just claims. They happened. I just left visiting Mr. and Mrs. Lopez and their two younger daughters here in Austin, and it should send a chill down the spine of everyone watching at home that the federal government would send federal law enforcement, in this case armed ICE agents, after a family just because their daughter spoke out about the mistreatment and completely wrongful deportation that she's experienced. I mean, Mr. Lopez is a tailor, a volunteer at his church. They're amazing parts of this community. And the fact that they were targeted by men in an unmarked van, that he was chased through his backyard, it's just completely unacceptable. And that's why we're demanding that Annie, their daughter that was wrongfully deported, be returned to Austin and that the Trump administration cease threatening her family.
And this incident prompted you to write a letter to DHS and ICE officials, and you're calling on those agencies to return Annie while her case plays out. What sort of answers or responses have you actually gotten, or what do you anticipate getting?
Look, we've seen cases where DHS and the Trump administration have wrongfully deported people. Think of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was wrongfully deported, and senators and congresspeople speaking out helped lead that campaign to bring him home. We're calling on the Trump administration to not use our federal law enforcement for political purposes, because they're sending federal law enforcement against Annie's parents. And look, it's no coincidence that they sent law enforcement to her parents' house right after she came out in the news. Also, something else that I learned is that Annie was not told that she had this removal order. She was not shown this removal order. She was just shackled and put on a plane. And in this country, you should be allowed to see an attorney, be able to stand in front of a judge, be able to make your case that you've been here virtually your entire life. And unfortunately, the Trump administration is just running roughshod over people's due process.
So, Congressman, what are the broader implications of Annie's deportation and her ongoing case then?
This is not just about Annie and her family. This is not just about immigrants. This is about all Americans' basic right to be able to have due process, have your day in court, and be able to speak up if you disagree with the government without the government saying, where do her parents live? Can we go send somebody to threaten her parents? That is not how things work in this country. In fact, Annie's family fled Honduras because of threats of violence there. And now Annie's little sisters had to watch their dad get chased by armed men coming out of an unmarked van here in East Austin. That's not the country that we want to live in. We want to live in a country where everyone has due process, where people can be safe, and where federal law enforcement is being used to keep us safe, not to fulfill some president's political vendetta.
Now, we have reached out to DHS and ICE in regard to that New York Times report and Congressman Casar's letter. We have yet to hear back.